He just RRSP'd. The Master can't make it, but he'll be there in spirit. Here's a look at the Mattel Master Universe Turtles of Grayskull, Splinter-Skull, Spiritual Sensei. After the turtles vanished, Master Splinter entered a deep meditation. Time and space faded away when he heard them from far, far away. Splinter let go of all attachment to his physical form and followed their calling. It took him to the first planet of the universe, Eternia, where he suddenly appeared at Castle Grayskull as the spiritual embodiment of the power of Grayskull itself. I sure hope Sensei Splinter's getting a strong enough signal. How about the first thing we do before we get a closer look at Splinter is we're going to grab the tape measure and see how tall Splinter-Skull stands from Turtles of Grayskull. Even though he's generally a small character, he's going to seem to be the same size as the rest of the turtles that we've looked at so far. In fact, Master Splinter is going to stand at 6 inches in height, or the figure is about 15 centimeters tall. Sincere apologies for the delay in looking at Master Splinter. I actually just recently picked this figure up. I don't know why it took me so long to grab him, but I'm finally now happy to add him with the rest of the turtle figures that we've looked at so far. In fact, here's what the figure looks like with Leonardo, Donatello. Hey, why not? Let's also bring in Man-at-Arms. And seeing as also this figure is, though, part of the Metal-Boto wave, which basically you need like 4 figures to build Metal-Boto, that wave also consisted of Slacker. I hopefully get Slacker to stand. And even though he was an okay-looking character, he had a terrible name. Here's what the figure looks like with Mousejaw. Metal-Boto's parts actually consist of 2. He comes with the torso, and he also comes with the back shell. Before we look at either one of those, the figure, first of all, comes included with a useless piece of paper. What's on the useless piece of paper, you may ask? You already know by now. Just to show you that Master Splinter, you can remove his head, you can take the arms off on either side, and of course you can remove his lower legs. Apparently, according to this as well, you can remove his tail. The tail is also, obviously, as you can see, a darker gray. But once you removed it, what are you going to do with it? It's not like you really attached it onto the back of He-Man's body. Don't give me any ideas. Why would they have darkened that? Makes no sense to me. Unless maybe you can add it to the end of it. Maybe you take the hand off, you can replace it with the tail. Don't give me any ideas. Anyways, the only idea I have right now is to discard this into recycling. There it goes. Probably also going to be going into recycling. Don't say that. Is the fact that he also comes included with like this postcard. What am I ever really going to do with these? In fact, so far the only thing I've done with these is put them inside of freezer bags. That's usually where I keep my figures because they're larger bags. The front, though, does have Meditation Splinter. The back does have Grayskull Master Powers, Enhanced Strength and Speed, Master of Ninjutsu, Wisest Sensei. He's not just the wise sensei, he's the wisest sensei. Talking rat to ever exist. Okay, I guess that is a title. I mean, if you really are the best at something, you just happen to be the only person that's doing it, yeah, of course you would be easily the best. Grayskull form, physical manifestation of the power of Grayskull, astral projection, ancient knowledge of Eternia. I really don't know what I'm going to do with these. I actually would have just preferred if this was a mini comic. I don't know what, a cardboard like this just doesn't serve a purpose for me, at least. Is it going to go into the recycling? Not yet. I'm not sure. I might put it in recycling. I'm going to put it over to the side for right now, and I'll ponder over what its fate is going to be. The fate of these 2 pieces, though, are going to be putting together Metal-Boto. I think we can actually say at least we've got enough going on here right now, at least with Master Splinter, that we can do something with these. Up to this point, the only thing I've really had is just a pile of parts here. I'm going to put them right all over here. Between the 2 figures that we've looked at, again, Slacker, Mousejaw, terrible name, we've amassed this much of mess. You get yourself the body, and again, like the body is rattling. The head was also something that was rattling, but I think we can actually do something with these now. The head is going to attach just like that. Is it safe to say that I can make these? There we go. I've committed to it already. And the head, the mouth does the mouth open and close? Not really. Maybe it's supposed to do something once you start adding all the extra parts. We also get ourselves a shell. Now, just before I actually put the shell on the back of Metal-Boto's body, so he's got 2 holes there, and he's got 2 pegs there. What you could also really do, too, is on the back of Master Splinter, there is also his bandolier that also has those same matching holes. If you'd rather have it on Splinter, you could do that, and then he just has the extra holes. These extra holes, really, if you wanted to, you can take all... I don't know, it's a little over the top, but I guess if Master Splinter wants to shoot things from behind, you could do that also as well. Also being, I'm just going to detach these. This sometimes does come loose. Just put that back in place. Put it back where I found it. What you could also do, too, is if you have yourself one of the turtle shells, the peg placement is exactly the same. and just plugs it into those holes. Unfortunately, though, this has happened a couple of times. The moment I put the shell in the back of his body, his armor always detaches on me, and it's always the hardest thing to put back in place. Do I have it? Okay, I think I do. So I'm not going to put the shell on Splinter's back. Splinter already has something that can go on the back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add this onto the back of Metal-Boto. Now, it doesn't really, I don't think it really matters, but if you look at the arch on the bottom of his back, see how it sits lower than the top of his shell. If you take the handle is going to kind of butt up against that. So you sort of want to spin it around and have it flush against the arch of his back. And that plugs in place that way. What else can we add? We can also add the lower body. So the legs can attach in place. We're still missing the feet. The feet are also going to come with the other character. And we also can add now finally the arm. The arm is just going to snap in place. I don't know why. Is this one going to give me some heartache? I hope not. That's going to, there we go, snap in place. Not the nicest of sounds it had to make. And that's basically what we've got so far from Metal-Boto. Now, to go over like all the other things that we've already had a look at, when I did have a look at Mousejaw, I sort of made the mistake of saying, like, he has these little side ports on the sides of his belt that you could take then these armor pieces, or these hand pieces. You could attach them onto the end of it, but the colors don't quite match. The reason why they don't match, and the reason why these sat so awkwardly on the side of his belt, because of course he does have the holes here, I said, like, why would that make any sense, and why would these not have been the exact same color? Well, the reasoning why they aren't the exact same color is that they belong to Metal-Boto. So you can either have, there's holes here on his arms, so you can attach, I guess it would have to probably go this way. So you can have it facing that way. You can also have them facing outward. In fact, actually, the picture has this particular cannon arm sticking out the sides of the shoulders. Or you can also, as I did earlier, you can attach them on the back of his body like that. And then there was also this piece, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out what it was supposed to do until it dawned on me. You're supposed to take the hand off. This plugs in place and sort of replaces now the hand. And then you can take any of the things that now have the pegs on the ends, and hey, how about that? That can plug onto the end of Metal-Boto's hand. So now basically basically works the exact same way as Trapjaw. And then you got these extra pieces. So the extra pieces could go on the back of his body, or hey, why not? They also can go on the side. You can really do whatever you want with it. We could probably do a lot more with it once we get the final figure. That's going to give us the arms. That's also going to give us the lower legs. And then we have ourselves Metal-Boto all completed. Whew. Finally, I can say at least I've accomplished something. I've put the semblance of what could have been a potentially cool-looking robot, and now we're making some headway. Let's move that off to the side. As for the other accessories, though, that come include with Splinter, Splinter gets himself the Spear of Grayskull. Pretty neat. The spear can be either held by hand like this, or you can also take it and detach it all together. What's interesting about this is the way they've colored it, giving it this sort of frosted blue effect. Ideally, though, it doesn't have to even belong to Splinter either. If you wanted, you could maybe give this maybe to He-Man, obviously. Just a neat-looking sword. A little on the stumpier side, obviously. It doesn't have as long of a blade. I just think that's kind of neat, the fact that you can detach it. And, of course, he does have gripping hands, so we can just open up the grip here. Take the handle. Now you can either attach it by the handle of the sword. Obviously, if the sword is detached from the rest of the handle down below here, he would just hold it by the sword. Or you can also have him holding it higher up. And for this, you can either slide it down, or again, we'll just pry the fingers away from the palm. Get out of the way, palm. Get out of the way, fingers. There we go. You can have him holding it that way. There's no storage space on the back of his body. I mean, obviously, it's there for the shell. I guess if you wanted to, you could take a shell from another turtle. Not that it's necessarily going to make any bit of a freeing up of places to store the extra weapons, but, you know, let's just say we'll take one of the turtle's shells. Does it fit with the spear? No, it's not wide enough. I guess maybe you could. I'm not going to mess with it. What I am going to though mess with is that the figure also comes included with a swappable hand. Not really sure why I would need this hand. I mean, it's just more of a gestured hand than a gripping hand. If you wanted to see what it looks like, it's just, you know, obviously take the hand, just remove it from the forearm, and we'll replace it with this hand. If I only have really the idea of having the figure displayed with the spear in one hand, then you know what? Okay, maybe I can entertain the idea that the figure has more of a gestured hand on the other side. This whole time of talking away, you probably have noticed over here, does he have a security blanket? It's not a security blanket. What he has, though, is a cape. The cape is a pretty soft material plastic, and then it does also have a fur trim. It's fairly easy to get over top of his head. The only thing that I've noticed, though, is when you try to get over top of his head, sometimes, though, and it happens a lot, it ends up popping the head right off the top of the peg. That's what it looks like. It kind of gives him definitely more of a regal look to it. You can certainly have it displayed without it if you want to, but the one thing it does sort of hide is some of the details on the back of his body, like, for example, the fact he does have the braided hair. You wouldn't be able to see it. The fur would only be in the way of things. He sort of also has, at the very top of his braid, a similar shape to the He-Man logo that he has on the front of his chest as well. Looks a lot like also Hercules. Remember Hercules? Hercules. I'm not going to sing it. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing it. I suppose you probably could take this off, maybe use it for another He-Man figure. I don't know. That's kind of neat. I kind of like the look of that. It does look a little like Hercules, doesn't it? This might be one of the coolest looking Splinters around. The thing I also really like about this Splinter is it does look very much like the original Playmates Splinter. Certainly the way it's sculpted, especially the way they've sculpted as well the nose. Maybe this is just like, it's got the perfect profile of a Playmates Splinter. Of course, what the original Splinter did not have is blue eyes. It also didn't have these braids on the front of his face. Now, these are all softer plastic. It also has the braid, of course, on the back of his head as well. Softer plastic. Nice looking head sculpt, though. One of the best, one of the coolest. Like, if you like the original Playmate Splinter, it's right up there. It's right up there. Colors look really good on this. He's got some airbrushing there on the top of the bridge of his nose. Mostly, though, his body is all here in brown. It's kind of more of a light caramel brown, too. He's then got a tunic over top of his body. And then he also has a very much kind of Hercules, I'm not even going to say it, a Hercules type of belt. I was trying to find a way to say that that's something relating to Hercules. Somebody will let me know down below. But yeah, that is all basically over top of his body. I don't think you'd be able to attach all of this. I would imagine, though, underneath all this would be an unfinished body. But it's got some nice scroll work on the sides. Of course, lower legs down below here, he has, it's not completely bare legs either. He has sort of the suggestion of what normal He-Man boots would be, other than obviously his feet would, there's no way his feet would actually sit inside of a regular master's boots. So, of course, he has to go barefoot. Speaking of barefoot, though, he has peg holes in the bottoms of his feet. Going back, though, to his tail, I don't know why really that stupid piece of paper told me I could remove this. I mean, sure, once I remove it, what am I going to do with it? I can't very well put it, okay, you know what, just for the sake of this, I'm always going to kind of be wondering, is this something no, that's never going to fit. So if that's never going to fit, what was the whole point of saying I could remove this? Yeah, I can remove it, but what am I going to do with it once I've now taken it off? Stupid piece of paper. I shouldn't say stupid. I dislike the information that was provided to me by that piece of paper. How's that? For the articulation, though, on Master Splinter or Splinter-Skull, head's going to rotate back and forth. It goes up, it goes down. I got to say also, while I'm doing all this, I don't know how crazy I like the idea of Splinter-Skull. I mean, we're talking about rats, we're talking about splinting skulls. Just sounds to me so, it just sounds like we're hurting animals here. Anyways, the ball joint is going to allow the head to rock back and forth as well. Again, you can move it up and down. His ears, I haven't spent any time really talking about Splinter's ears, but they're pretty soft and plastic. Of course, the arms do rotate all the way around. If you did want to, you could easily swap these off and change them out with another Master's figures. The paper tells you to do that. Just again, like, do we care? Am I even going to bother? Just to show you. You can take these off. You can replace them with other Master's figures. Pop that back in place. The figure does have a swivel in his forearm, but that same swivel, would you believe, also has a hinge joint right there that allows the elbow to bend. How about that? Hands rotate also all the way around. You can hinge them back and forth. The figure does have a waist swivel. Legs split out. You can bring them forward. You can bring them back. A little bit of a rock there at the top where that's attached by the ball joint. Single hinge only for the knee. That allows at least the lower leg to rotate. You can, of course, rotate the lower part where his boot is. And, of course, you got some ankle articulation. The feet, similar to his ears, are very soft and plastic. Look at him. Look at me. I'm squishing the rodent's toes. Of course, you got your ankle rocket there as well. Nice looking Splinter. Nice looking Splinter. And though, as a side note, I keep going back to Hercules. Why are we spending so much time talking about Hercules? I think with that tunic, you could come up with a pretty jazzy, snazzy looking Hercules figure. Of course, the whole idea of removing the tail is lost on me. I don't know why. What are we going to do with Splinter's tail? Anyways, though, what I can do is display Splinter with the remaining turtles, whether you want to go with the cape. The cape's right here, by the way. I'm going to add that back to final looks. Or you want to go without the cape. Nice. Splinter is, honestly, though, I mean, even though I've kind of been like lukewarm to the overall turtles, I've been more kind of excited for the side characters. I guess technically Sensei Splinter would be a side character. He's a little bit more interesting. He's a lot more interesting than the turtles. And I don't know if it's just the fact I'm looking at his head sculpt that it reminds me so much of the original Playmates days of collecting TMNT. Splinter is really neat. I'm glad I had the chance to finally pick him up. I'm a little late, yes, to finally looking at this guy in a review, but hopefully the review was well worth it. Hopefully picking him up for you guys aren't going to be as easy, or hopefully isn't going to be as hard for me. Because when I was trying to actually find this guy, first time actually checking around to sites, he was quite available. Then I sort of said to myself, well, you know, I don't need to get him right away. There's other more prioritized Motu stuff that I really want to look at first. Sure enough, I went back to those sites. Splinter was all gone. I ended up finding this over on the Facebook groups, and I ended up, I want to say, like $35. I guess $35 isn't bad at all, because what we get from that is a pretty cool looking Splinter, whether he's actually really there in Eternia or not. Oh, and just before we jump over to the turntable, I did also want to bring back in Metal-Boto, just for anyone that had already picked up this figure and put everything together, probably is already telling me down below in the comment section, I'm going to beat you right to it. You could swivel the waist, and by swiveling the waist will also allow the chattering of the mouth, which would then explain why there was probably rattling in the body and why also there was some additional rattling in the mouth. It's that everything connects together in a merry chain, and of course rotating the body causes Metal-Boto's mouth to move. What he's actually saying, I really don't know, other than you're going to have to buy another figure. You're going to have to buy another figure in order to finish the rest of me. I guess, if he's the spiritual embodiment of Master Splinter, technically I suppose the figure probably should have also had a bit of a bluish glow to it. The problem with that, though, is it would just been stupid. I mean, let's face facts. Obviously, anyone, I think, would have just preferred to have a regular version of Splinter, which is exactly what we got from Mattel. Splinter, though, whether you decide to have the furry cape on him or not, I think the fur cape does add a little bit of actual regalness to the character, whether he's wielding, though, the spear of Grayskull or not. The thing I like, though, about the spear, as mentioned in this review, is that you can detach the sword from the rest of it. So if you wanted to have just as a serviceable sword, overlooking the obvious of the fact that the blade's a little on the short and stumpy side, I think the sword is actually kind of cool. Splinter, though, again, keep going back to the head sculpt here. There's just something charming about the way they've sculpted his head. I feel like they took a lot of inspirational cues from the original Playmates days of Splinter, short of maybe the soft goods material that he had for his gi. It's pretty much Master Splinter. Oh, and obviously Master Splinter now is big and buff. The original Splinter really wasn't that. He, in fact, needed a cane. This Splinter ain't needing any cane. What do you guys, though, think of Splinter-Skull? I don't know. I just don't think the names work in all that for me. I mean, calling him Splinter is one thing. Obviously, if he is the embodiment and he's tapped into the powers of Grayskull, it would just make the most sense to logically split the name and combine them together. But Splinter-Skull, and then we're talking about a rodent. It doesn't work as well for me. But I mean, I'm just going to likely call him Splinter. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comment section. Have you guys had the chance to pick up the Turtles of Grayskull Splinter? Probably if you have, you picked this guy up like a couple of weeks to a month ago. I know I've kind of been sitting on the back burner waiting to pick this guy up, and then finally I found him on the Facebook group because this guy waited too long to buy him through normal online means. If you guys did enjoy this video, do it solid, throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. Hit that subscribe, turn on that bell, of course, and as always, come back. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.